I'm just a counselor. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I listen and I provide feedback, attempting to guide clients towards some level of peace in their life. A recent client of mine has made this part of the job difficult. I found myself gravitating towards this field of work as someone who benefited from therapy as a teenager after my parents went through a very messy divorce. I just wanted to pass on the proverbial torch and make sure others were able to navigate their own insecurities and traumas. Despite the strangeness of my session with this new client, it started off routinely. He came in as a trauma survivor. He was electrocuted after crashing his vehicle into a power line, and his heart stopped at the scene. It's not entirely uncommon for victims of a near-death experience to attach spiritual or religious connotations to the event. But what this client told me is beyond anything I've heard before. I ask all of my clients for their consent to record sessions as a way to better understand them. I listen back to them before I'm scheduled to see them again, compare my notes, and come up with topics for us to discuss. This particular client is scheduled for tomorrow, and I was feeling a bit apprehensive before listening back to the recording. I skipped through the beginning of the recording, normal pleasantries and introductions. I'd asked him all the usual icebreakers to get to know him before I allowed him to start the conversation on his terms.
Okay.
I could almost feel his breath on the back of my neck as he sighed.
This might sound a little weird. I know the afterlife isn't what we think it is. But there is an afterlife?
I asked, probing him to explain.
You can probably tell I haven't led the best of lives. I mean, look how I got here. Smashed my car into a pole because I got hammered at 2 in the afternoon.
At this, he averted his gaze, looking down at the floor. He took a moment before telling me.
I'd figured out that I probably belonged in hell. But that's just it. I didn't really go anywhere. No hell. Nothing. So, what did you experience?
I asked, feeling my professionality slip a bit as my fascination grew.
It's not so much what I experienced. It's that I have an understanding that I didn't before.
He again turned his gaze to the floor and remained silent for a moment. I leaned forward in my chair.
Near-death experiences like yours can be life-altering.
I offered.
An inflection point that separates life into a before and after for victims like I'm not a victim,
He said, cutting me off. I noticed a gruffness to his voice that I hadn't clocked before.
I wasn't punished,
He said. Making direct eye contact, he continued.
I was given a gift. No one saved me. Whoever it was that dragged me away from the power line ran off when I came to. Whoever helped him ended up calling the paramedics after they couldn't find a pulse. I remember I must have scared that first guy pretty bad, judging by the sounds he was making as he took off.
He chuckled.
You seem to be taking this in stride,
I said, giving him an approving smile.
What do you think has helped you to move forward so quickly?
I was hoping to elicit a sort of introspection in him so I could encourage any of his positive behaviors. As I was listening, the recording became a bit staticky. This was odd as I never moved my recorder during sessions. It almost sounded as if someone had picked it up and was messing with the microphone. I decided to check my notes just in case, but had only observed that the client appeared agitated or nervous and was bouncing his leg.
People can live with pain, torment. Humanity is capable of many things, but its ability to adapt is what made it so successful. And you've adapted.
I asked. I noticed now that my voice had become garbled in the playback, like a radio station that the antenna can't quite pick up.
There are folks whose bodies are only there to hold up their heads,
He said, his voice cutting quite clearly through the static.
a sack of meat that only provides fuel for the brain that sits inside, locked in. They can't speak, can't move, but are still capable of thinking and creating. Still able to live. That could have been me,
He concluded.
but it wasn't. Your gift?
The static almost completely drowned out my response. I found this annoying and tapped the recorder against my palm. I even tried reconnecting my earbuds, but that did nothing to quell the crackling.
My gift.
He said with a smirk. Again, his voice came through cleanly, the static fading as if waiting, only returning when he had finished his sentence. I couldn't hear what I said to him over the static, so I looked to my notes for guidance. They indicated that I had noticed a shift in his demeanor, and that I asked him to return to his initial subject. I wanted him to explore how his new understanding of the afterlife informed his ability to move forward and adapt. My usually messy but legible handwriting appeared a bit shaky, like my hand was trembling as I was taking notes.
Death is like a cascade, a landslide filling in the holes that life left behind.
The static that had pervaded the recording began to morph itself into a rumbling now, like a shifting of earth and the tumbling of stones. This had to be my imagination, my subconscious finding meaning in the noise through the persuasion of his words.
I was filled in,
He continued.
but I'm still here.
There was a pause, not long, but somehow I could tell that he'd once again met my gaze when he began.
I felt my heart stop. It was odd. The ringing in my ears went away. I could hear people scrambling, a 911 operator on speakerphone. But it was so clear, like a bell being rung in an empty room.
I felt myself being drawn to his words. My hands were nearly vibrating as I wiped a bead of sweat that had trickled its way down my brow.
I could feel consciousness slipping away, like my soul was slowly pouring out of me, stretching me like a rubber band until I snapped. It sounded like someone had cracked a whip inside my skull. Then, everything was silent.
His words echoing as the sound of a thunderclap played in my ears. Checking my notes was futile. I don't know if I wasn't looking at my pad when I was writing, but my words were a complete jumble of scribbles and what I thought was cursive. I don't write in cursive. I can barely read it. I gave up trying to parse my notes and continued listening. It's all I could do.
I could almost feel my brain start to atrophy. I might have been hallucinating. My mind's last attempt to make sense of the visual world. It was like a kaleidoscope was swirling under my eyelids before everything fell in on itself.
His tone had become eerily placid. The noise and static had completely fallen away. He continued.
Reality collapsed around me, and I could hear every single memory I had ever formed being played at once. They were being pulled from my soul, weaving themselves into a light show in front of me, combining with a fog of pulsing colors and forming a ring of crackling smoke. I was no longer in control.
I caught myself mouthing the words he had spoken. I clapped a hand over my lips. Why did I do that? This was my first time listening to this recording, and it's not like I remember our conversation word for word. Yet I had been reciting my client's memories like they were words to a song I couldn't get out of my head.
I knew.
I had to do it, he said in my ear. I needed to go through this ring. It called to me. I felt myself being pulled toward it. I stuck out my hand, and as it entered the blackness, the word "no" screamed in my ears, and my whole body burned with more pain than I've ever experienced. And then I was back. He went silent and the recording sizzled in my ears, louder now. I checked the length of the recording and scrubbed through it, hearing only static. I looked at my notes, desperate to find something. Perhaps I had some insight that could help the both of us. But the only word that stood out to me in my trembling scribbles were 2 capital letters. No. What use could I be to him if I was so easily shaken by his story? What was with the static? Am I going crazy? I wasn't going to be able to suss out anything more through the endless droning. I must have been consoling the client at this point, probably trying to place some sort of meaning on his vision to help him take control of his new lease on life. This was too weird. I couldn't take any more of this recording. It wasn't at all how I remembered the session. Trying to calm myself, I took a deep breath and removed the earbud, growing irritated by the static. But as I stood up, earbuds in hand, the sound remained. I checked the recording and it was paused. I brought the earbud to my ear and heard nothing. I thought it could just be my tinnitus, but that was usually just a quiet ringing. This was like unplugging the cable on an old TV with the volume at maximum. It was not a sound that I could tune out. The static had to be coming from somewhere. I tore my place apart looking for the source. I tried my Bluetooth speaker, bringing it close to my ear. That wasn't it. Turning off my ceiling fan was equally useless. I went room to room, shutting off anything that could be making noise. The static was coming from everywhere. I checked under the couch, searched through drawers and cabinets. Somebody had to be messing with me. There had to be a tiny speaker or a white noise machine or something. I flipped my mattress, moved my dresser, and checked inside my oven. I ripped out the racks in frustration after I found nothing. I realized I had gone too far when I caught myself manhandling my AC unit, ready to shove it out of the window. I slowly released my grasp. My hands were trembling as I shut it off. The buzzing in my ears wouldn't go away. It was the last thing in my apartment that made any noise. It's been hours since I finished the recording, but nothing I do will quiet the droning. I pulled my pillow over my ears, shoved my fingers in deep, but it's useless. It's like the universe is whispering, but the words are too far away to reach me. I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm going to cancel my appointment with this client. What should I do if the sound doesn't stop?